Welcome back to our second interview with j.elle, the New York Times bestselling author of Wings of Ebony. Today, we are going to be going over some marketing and publishing topics. Our mission is to bring tools necessary to writers so that they can someday become a successful author, and we think j.elle is going to be the perfect person to help you with that. So j.elle, can you tell us what the #1 method you have found for getting your name out there and any other marketing tips that you have?
Oh man, thanks for having me back, by the way. That is a huge question. It depends. So much of it depends on what area writers are writing in. And for example, like marketing a middle grade book is different from marketing a YA book, because a lot of the book buyers and sort of gatekeepers in the middle grade space are school and librarians, parents, whereas in the YA space, there are teen readers, but there are also adult readers. And so it's a different animal. So it's hard to answer that question broadly. What I would say is that having an understanding of who your audience is and who you're trying to reach is sort of the first thing you need to know before you can even consider how to market something, because how you market to reach one audience is not the way that you market to reach another audience. You need to know where your audience is getting information, and you need to sort of understand where your audience, how your audience builds trust with brands. An example would be Gen Z, right? So Gen Zers are very big into TikTok. I mean, I'm very big into TikTok, and I'm like on the tail end of millennials. Like I think I'm on the year cutoff, so I don't get to be a cool Gen Zer. But anyway, but for example, like I was doing some research and learning a little bit about how one of the great appeals of TikTok, which is very different from Instagram in that it's not sort of like this image-based, perfected and polished sort of platform. TikTok's seems to thrive on like authenticity and authentic connections, which makes sense because it was born out of a pandemic. So you see this sense of consumers there not wanting to be sold to, wanting to feel like they have an authentic connection with someone versus like a corporation trying to gain their trust. I find that Gen Zers tend to be very sort of wary of corporations, and they're sort of more person to person. And so I think knowing that is really helpful, because that changes, whether or not you post something on Instagram that's very stylized and pretty and choreographed, or something really authentic and personal, like you opening your book for the first time on TikTok. Those are going to have different effects, and you have to know where that content makes the most sense and who's going to respond and receive to that content. And you have to know which platform to use in order to get that content. So Twitter is the platform I use to connect with the writing community, because to be honest, like that's who I relied on when I was trying to learn to write. And it's still who I rely on when I go for just like writing sprints and encouragement and like publishing celebration, like publishing news. And it's just sort of where publishing kind of lives, is on Twitter. And so I built my platform there in terms of just like connecting with people, because first and foremost, I was a writer and I wanted to be a part of the writing community as I learned and grew as a writer and continue to learn and grow as a writer. Out of that, though, what ended up happening is this really sort of close knit, I mean, I have like 18,000 followers, but it feels close knit, community of people on the social media app that feel like they're a part of my journey. They celebrate with me, they encourage me, and vice versa. And so I realized when I had a book coming out and I told my Twitter followers, for example, that they wanted to celebrate with me and they wanted to see me succeed. And so I leaned into that and continued to share moments with them, continued to go to Twitter and tell them the news about my book, and really leverage that platform as a communication space between me and this community I built. On Instagram, my community is a little different. I have some crossover between my platforms, but on Instagram, I noticed that it's a lot of book people who are into books and like potential readers looking for things that visually catch their eye, looking for things that are inspiring, looking for things it's not so much engaging with the person behind the content, but more so just engaging with the content. And so on Instagram, which I ignored it existed until September before my book came out, and I was like, I finally should pay attention to this app, because it's just so much work to think about managing all these platforms. But in September, I was like, okay, let me try to, put some content here and see what happens. It was really a game plan of me figuring out, how do I put content out that's different from Twitter? Because it's not the same medium and people there don't respond the same necessarily. Like I'm not reaching the same people. And so I had to figure out a creative way to use that. By the time I got to release week, I had this formulated this entire plan of using particular images that are very cool. I did an editorial photo shoot downtown in the city where my book is set, which is also the city where I grew up and where I live now. And I used that because I knew that, I mean, I knew it'd be fun on Twitter and my followers would be excited there, but I know on Instagram, it would be more visually appealing and pull different readers to notice my content that didn't typically. And that's what you want the week before your release and the week of your release, because you have all of this other hype going on and you want to really build a moment around your debut so that your Wings of Ebony and your author name is being mentioned everywhere on different platforms and in different mediums to continue, because people have to hear about things multiple times before they actually pay attention. And so you want to sort of look at ways to present information that in different ways. And then on TikTok, I shared my book unboxing, and that went viral the week of my release. So that was also very helpful. And so I think, again, this is a very it's a hard question to answer because it's very specific to me, but I think that those examples are very specific to me is what I mean. But I think that the point I'm making is that it's just very unique to who your audience is and understanding how to communicate with them. And there are definitely resources online. If you have questions, I can think of a couple of people who even do classes on these things. I plan to do a class on these things eventually. So if this is something you want more about, please don't hesitate to reach out on socials. Twitter is usually the best place to get me if you're gonna tag me or DM me, because I actually check those DMs. The other ones I don't. So if you want more information, let me know. But it is very personal. And I think the question is, who is my audience? Where are they? And what mediums do I use to communicate with them in an authentic way?
It's fantastic. Great advice.
I love that.
Knowing who your audience is really how you write your book too. Because if you don't know what genre you're writing in, your book's gonna be all over the place.
Yeah.
You have to keep your audience in mind when you're writing too, for sure. What was the querying process like for you, and what are A-list agents looking for?
What is the last part you said, and what are
the A-list agents looking for in query?
Oh, goodness, the A-list agents. And do I know that? I'm not one of them. My agent, I love my agent to death. She's amazing. Literally, she's one of the most amazing people I've ever met in my 36 years. But let's see. So querying for me was a little different because I entered a pitch contest, which was on Twitter in the writing community. And it was called Div Pit. I entered that contest where I posted a tweet, which kind of summarized my book. It's a specific day and time. You don't just sign on today and go tweet your book. Nothing's going to happen. There's a day where publishing professionals are specifically going to patrol Twitter for story pitches. And it's set hours and everything. If you want more information about that, look at divpit.com or .org, DVPIT. Is how you spell that. And basically I put my tweet up there, and agents and publishers went through, and they hit editors will hit retweet if they're interested in seeing pages. Agents will click the like button. And so my tweet blew up. It got 600 something, it just got a ton of likes. It got a ton of likes. And so what ended up happening is from there, I knew, okay, this is something that a lot of people are interested in. So I just queried my dream list at that point, and I received multiple offers of representation. And then I signed with my first agent, and we did revisions and then went on sub. So my querying experience was a little different. I have, however, mentored other writers, several of them very closely. I'm very hands-on with the writers that I mentor. I've sort of seen how they queried. And I think it just depends on your book and your book's hook. If your book is very high concept commercial, it could do well in a pitch contest because it gets a lot of attention. So it can move your query a little faster through agents' inboxes. If your story isn't necessarily a high concept commercial pitch, that's fine. It doesn't have to be, but not all books pitch well in a tweet. So understand that some people do a pitch contest, some people don't. Some people enter a mentoring contest like Pitch Wars, where you submit your manuscript for a mentor to consider it. There are about 3,500 people who apply, and only 100 get selected to work with a mentor. And those 100 work on revisions for 3 to 4 months with a mentor. And the mentors are seasoned in what they're doing. Sometimes they're agents, but most of the time they're soon to be or published authors. And essentially after that happens, at the end of that 3-month period, there's a showcase, and agents from all over the world participate in the showcase. It means that for a specific set number of hours, they will scroll through little short pitches and sample pages of just these Pitch Wars manuscripts. And it's this huge, huge ordeal. Like there's an entire task force committee. Like it takes a year of planning. Like it's very involved. Children of Blood and Bone came through Pitch Wars. Shelby Mahern, what's her book?
Yes, yeah.
Gods and Monsters is what I want to say, but what's the first one? Serpent and Dove came through Pitch Wars. Sing Me Forgotten, Jessica Olsen came through Pitch Wars. So, and I've been a Pitch Wars mentor twice. I will probably be a mentor this year as well. And so that's another way that you can sort of, your querying experience can be a little different. In terms of what A-list agents are looking for, I don't feel like I have the authority to speak on that. What I can say is that a good story with a compelling character and good writing is always going to catch the eye of someone. I think a lot of times I interned at 2 agencies for a little over a year. And what I saw most in queries is most people querying are querying too early. I queried too early, to be honest. My book could have been far more polished, but I didn't know that at the time, of course. But every time you write, every time you revise, your work gets better and better and better. And so what I see most often is that people are rushing to the query trenches. I also see a lot of query letters that are not written correctly, and that is really a barrier to getting an agent. Sometimes some agents just go straight to the pages, but a lot of them will get hung up on the query. A lot of them have assistants reading their query inbox. And so if your query is very confusing or doesn't explain enough about the story or talks about the writer more than the book, then a lot of times they'll just go to the next one. So they don't even get to the pages. So it's really important that you understand that you're writing a solid query letter. I recommend Query Shark for information on that. If you go to my website, author.j.elle.com, there are some resources there. And of course, you can always reach out on Twitter if you have questions about that. Alexa Dunn also has some fantastic resources about querying if you scroll through her past videos. So I would definitely suggest doing all your research. Queries have a formula to them, so make sure you're using that. And then after that, make sure that your sample pages are ready. Not just ready to your eyes, not just ready to your mom's eyes, who's your biggest fan or your best friend, but like get in touch with some other writers, published authors, soon to be published authors, and exchange work and see what their feedback is and really sit with feedback. You don't need to take all the feedback, but like sit with why they're saying what they're saying. Sometimes they'll give you solutions and you're like, well, that's not how I would do it. But think about the why behind why they're suggesting it. If they're saying you need to kill someone on page 10, is it because they think you don't have any tension? Like maybe you don't need to kill somebody on page 10. Maybe all you need to do is create some other kind of tension by page 10. So think about the why behind the advice and just make sure your pages are ready. I do see, oh goodness, let's see. So this is going to be highly subjective, but right now I think I see a lot of requests for middle grade. I see more paranormal than I have seen in a long time. Let's see, romance I think is always interesting and like always getting picked up. Contemporary fantasy seems to really be taking off as well. I'm seeing a lot of dark academia. So these are all things, but don't write to trends. Like, I mean, sure, keep it in mind if you have like a dark academia book and you're like, I've been waiting for a time to write it, well, where they won't reject me. I mean, now could be a good time, but if it takes you 5 years to write it, that may have changed. So you just never know. So you can't get hung up too much on, what agents are picking. You really have to write the best book that you can write. And yeah, maybe take note of market, but write the best book you can write and give it your best shot, understanding that it can take several books and several years before you get an agent. Ultimately, though, not stopping is how you get there.
Don't give up.
Don't give up. How long did it take you to get your agent?
I hate answering this question because I think my experience is very unusual. It is not typical, but basically I queried after Div Pit and I had an agent offer within, I think, 20 days.
Wow. Yeah, so that's not typical.
Not at all. And so I don't typically share that as an example. Yeah, because it's not typical. I do think that pitch contests can make that happen for you, but I think that only works for certain kinds of books, and so people should just understand if they enter a pitch contest on Twitter or something and it doesn't work well, not every book pitches well in a tweet. So not like your story's not broken because it didn't get picked up quickly in a pitch contest.
Yeah,
I saw that you're with Jodie Reamer, and I just think that is so cool because I'm a huge Twilight fan. I was like, oh, amazing. But was it hard switching agents for you?
Yes.
Okay.
It was hard because an agent-client relationship is like a relationship. And my first agent had done a lot of really fantastic things for me. I knew it was time to just part ways. But it's just hard because it's a relationship. So it was emotionally hard. But I knew it was the right choice. And I have not found words adequate to express how incredibly amazing Jody Reamer is. I absolutely love working with her. Like, it's a dream. She has changed my life.
Wow. So I mean, those are goals, right? That's what you want in an agent, is to have that partnership. Because I'm sure, I don't know, I don't have an agent, but I'm guessing about how important it is. I'm sure she knows your book just almost as well as you do, in a sense of going back and forth. So that's very cool.
She's amazing. And every agent isn't the right fit for every writer. So sometimes it takes a few. It's like trying on shoes. Like, these shoes are really cute in the store, and you try them on and you feel really cute when you wear them out. And you're like, you know what? These make my feet hurt, and I'm over that life. So I'm returning them. Like, and it's okay. Like it can take a few tries to figure out what the right fit is. So
Good to know.
So what is it like to have 5 contracted books and go on submission for those?
Stressful. No, I'm kidding. Okay, so let's see. I have 6 now. 6. I've sold 6 books now, and yeah. So my first 2 would be Wings of Ebony and the sequel, and both of those are written, so that's done. And then the second 2 are my magic school books 1 and 2. I'm hoping that series will actually be 6 books, but we just sold the first 2 initially. And the first one is written and almost done through edits. And the second one I'm actually writing next month. If anybody's interested to see how I wrote that book, I wrote it in 9 days and I documented it all on YouTube. So go check that out. And let's see, my 5th book is a nonfiction business book that I'm writing with one of my best friends from childhood. She just has this really inspiring rags to riches story. And she turned like Goodwill shopping into a $1 million empire, essentially. She has a $1 million fashion brand that she runs now. And she has these really, really inspiring, just like this inspiring perspective on what people outside of the mainstream bring to the table, and how we don't often like, we're so focused on getting to the insider status that we don't realize that no, being outside the mainstream is actually the most lucrative place to be, that we have an edge in that space. And so it's called The Outsider Advantage, and it's out with the same team that did Girl Boss, which is Penguin Portfolio. And so that's a fun one. I'm just the writer on that one. I won't be marketing it because it's her face that's on the book, but because she's one of my best friends, and because I actually approached her and I was like, you have to write a book. She's like, I don't write books. I was like, well, I do. So let's do this. So I feel as invested in it as if it's my book. My name will be on the front, but I'm not going to do any like promo for it necessarily, because it's her story. But I'm excited about that one. So I'm writing that one I'm finishing that one this summer as well. So there's 2 books I'm writing this summer. And then my 6th book, I can't talk about at all. I can't talk about it all, but I will say that it's really cool. I don't know when I'll announce it. And it's a dream come true sort of project. And that one I'm writing this summer as well. And so you're getting an idea of what it's like to have so many contracts. And then my next YA series is I'm very excited about, and I've finished the sample pages for that. That's the one I've written hundreds of thousands of words in that I talked about last time. And I am just putting the finishing touches on the synopsis today, this weekend, actually. So, and so when that sells, then I guess we'll be at 9 contracts. So I don't know. It's just how it goes, because publishing happened so far in the past. Like, I have 5 contracts, but 1, 2, 3 of those are already done. You know what I mean? And so I guess I have 6, but 3 of those are already done, even though only 1 book is out. So I don't know. It's a lot. It's a lot, but I'm grateful. Huh?
How many words or hours do you write a day?
Oh, it really depends. It really depends. When I'm in the zone on a project, I will start writing probably by 8:30, and I probably won't stop until, I'll stop for breaks and food, but like I won't stop writing until probably like 8.
It's like 12-hour days.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. When I'm really focused. But again, like with my middle grade, I did that and I didn't do that. That book as a middle grade, it was shorter, so I didn't need 12-hour days. I find that the better my outline is, the less time I have to spend at the computer figuring out what to write. So I've become a very rigid outliner, where I used to be a complete pantser. Because the clearer idea that I have of my scene, the faster I can execute it. because I can actually write 3,000 words in about an hour and a half. That's not difficult, but it's like, what am I writing? Like, what am I putting down? That's the hard part, right? And so I try to figure all that out before I sit down to write. So that's why I'm doing all of this planning and prepping now for my next series, so that when I actually sit down, I've written the first 75 pages, but when I sit down to write the rest of it, I can kick it out pretty efficiently. I think one book a month is pretty typical for me. And I would say, depending on if it's middle grade or YA, 4 to 12 hours is probably what I spend a day.
You have like superpowers. That is insane. Obviously, you were born to do this.
I do agree with that. I feel like I finally sort of clicked into like, okay, this is what I'm supposed to be doing.
This is my calling in life. Like,
yes, that's
wow.
That's amazing. I've been writing the same book since October.
Oh, that's good. No, that's good. That's good. I'm excited.
Like a minute to absorb that. Wow.
But I don't
right now.
I don't do that every month. I just pick select months and I'm like, okay, this month nothing's happening but writing. So.
That's awesome. That's incredible.
See here. Okay, so Wings of Ebony is with Simon and Schuster, and then I saw that you are also with Penguin Random House and Bloomsbury. What has it been like working with big publishers like that?
It's really interesting because they're all very different, very different. They all have their own like culture and like way of doing things and different like philosophies and practices. And then of course, where your book is on the list. I'm very fortunate that all of my books are lead titles with all of these publishers. So that's really helpful. But yeah, it's very different. So yeah, my YA is with Simon and my Wings of Ebony duology is with Simon and Schuster. My magical series is with Bloomsbury. And then the business book is with, again, it's my book because I'm writing it, but it's not my book, it's her book. And that is out with Portfolio at Penguin. And I'm just so excited to do that with them specifically because I loved a lot about Girl Boss and I thought they published it in a really smart way. And so it's going to be very exciting to work with the same team who put that phenomenon out on her book. So I'm excited for the world to get it. I think it's going to be brilliant. That also comes out next year. So yes, that comes out the month after my middle grade, I think. They haven't officially decided, but somewhere I think around summer maybe.
And your mom too. Like, how do you find the time?
I don't know. My children are watching their 4th hour of television this morning right now, so maybe the house.
Oh, this just makes me feel like I need to spend the rest of today writing. So
no. I do write a lot in spurts like that, but understand too, like I love writing. You know how some people clean as a de-stressor?
Yes.
I escape to words on a page. Like that's what I do when the world is falling apart. I'm like, let me go write a romance scene. So it doesn't feel like work all the time. And that's really important because I don't think it's healthy to be work. Yeah. It's like, I honestly see writing, or at least outlining, which is what I'm doing right now, and like exploring my synopsis is like doing a puzzle. And it's kind of like you do a puzzle and you get stuck and you're like, I'll come back. And then you come, you're like, let me try again. And that's what writing is like for me. Like I graze on my words all day because my brain is trying to put the puzzle together. And I just think that's fun. So I think it's work, but then a lot of times it's recreational too.
Yeah. I think that's the way, I mean, to be an author, to be a writer, you have to look at it that way because it's so much work to become published.
And it might not like you gotta do it for the love.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah, you don't love it, you can't push through it. You have to really love it. So I heard that your middle grade series went to auction in the UK and the US. Can you capture in words what that felt like for you?
Actually, no, my middle grade series went to auction in the US. The nonfiction went to auction in both places. The nonfiction actually got its first offer within 48 business hours. Like within 2 days on Sub, we had calls set up with, I think our first call was with Harper. So that one went to auction in both places, and it's sold in other territories as well, which is cool. Auction is fun. So my first series sold in a preempt, and we like turned down the opportunity to go to auction because
with Wings.
Yeah, with Wings, right? Okay. Because we took the preempt, and so with Bloomsbury, with my middle grade, did we get a preempt? We didn't get a preempt. We just got multiple interests pretty quickly. And so that was just a regular auction. So by the time I went to my third book deal with the nonfiction, I knew, I was like, I don't want to preempt, even if one comes, like I want to go to auction, North American rights only. Like you just, once you go through it a few times, like I know what I want on the table and I know what I don't want on the table. But it's really fun.
Yeah.
We really love the UK publisher that we're working with for the nonfiction. I think that they have a really smart sort of strategy in place as well. And the Bloomsbury has just been so fun and delightful. They just have such a strong presence, I think, in school library in particular. And they have some of my favorite books are published by them. So that was just fun to be able to dive into. And all my editors are different and unique and special in their own ways, but they all have their different styles. So it's fun. And I'm a people person. So I don't know. I find it fun. I find it cool.
Very cool. Very jealous. But so how much control did you have over your contract, and were you able to have any say over your cover?
So your agent is responsible for negotiating your contract. And a lot of times your contract will revert to sort of, not revert, but start at sort of the boilerplate that your agency has in place, which is why it's really important that when you sign with an agency, you really take into account, like, do they know what they're doing as an agency? Because some agencies, for example, have fantastic boilerplates in place with publishers because they have authors that have done deals with them before. And so you sort of get the benefit sometimes of like the base boilerplate, which was like little things like how many author copies you get. If you've already negotiated to get 30 author copies because some other person has sold to them from that agency that's gotten 30 author copies, usually you can say, well, we usually get 30 from you when we deal with you. So this author gets 32. So you can see how that's really helpful when you're considering what agencies to go to. It's very hard to get cover approval. Like you have to be kind of, yeah, maybe Stephanie Meyer does. I have no idea. But I just feel like you can usually get cover consultation, which is where they'll at least ask your opinion. I mean, I have found, because again, I mentor a lot of writers, and my mentees, the two that have sold, they both sold very big books. Also out next year, so make sure you check them out. But I noticed that not all the time, but a lot of the time publishers will get insight from the author on the cover, and it really just depends on the editor. My editor just has an eye for art, and so she found Taj Francis to put this cover concept together, and she definitely I think she just really, I'm trying to remember how it unfolded. Oh yeah, that's right. She had ideas about what she thought. I shared my ideas, and then we sort of shared them with she shared them with the art design team. But the publisher really has there's a science behind what should the cover look like, a loose science. And they think about like what colors draw certain readers in, like they think about the audience of the book, what it's going to look like on the shelf, and what colors it's going to be next to. And they're really specific about it. So sometimes it's hard to get them to really defer to your opinion, but I've been very fortunate that all of my publishers have cared immensely about my opinion, and when I have given feedback, they've taken it into consideration. And so yeah, I love my Wings of Ebony cover. I love my Ashes of Gold cover, and I'm excited about my Park Row Magic Academy cover. I haven't seen the first one yet, but I just know it's going to be adorable because that book is just so sweet and fun.
I can't wait to read it.
It's so silly.
It's like right up my alley. I love it.
I love silly books. So what is the best method that you have found to get your book out into the world?
You mean in terms of writing it, or like
marketing it, getting people to see it, opening it up and read it? The
traditional publishing route or self-pub?
Maybe a little bit of both, if you could touch on both.
I don't know much about self-pub, so I don't think I can spend a lot talking about that. I'm not an expert in that. What I've gleaned from others is that it's a lot about networking and sort of resources and understanding how to use like Amazon and Facebook to your advantage. The traditional publishing route, honestly, there isn't a lot the writer can do to move the sales needle unless you have a following. And I think that I hesitate on this topic because I don't want to give the impression that you need a following to publish a book to be successful, because you don't, and you shouldn't have to. I mean, I personally believe that when a publisher acquires a book, it's their job to market it. It's their job to sell it. That's why you're giving them the rights to sell the book. And so you're supposed to be writing it and editing it with your editor. And so I do think that if you have a personal brand, it's helpful. And I think that being authentic and present and personally engaging with that brand, making sure that you're giving indie bookstores lots of love and really considering them in your efforts and not just focusing on like Amazon and big chains. Like, it's really important. Indies are very powerful when it comes to selling books and word of mouth. And they have a direct line to librarians if you write in the kidlit space. So I think it's really important to make sure that we love on our indie bookstores, not just because they work so hard and they're like fighting to keep their doors open after coming through a pandemic, but just because like they're just overall awesome and they're just great. They're a great network to have. So making sure that you're spending time networking with and taking care of and giving lots of love to indie bookstores. But then also leveraging your personal network. I think word of mouth is super powerful, but also just doing what's natural to you. I really hesitate to give people the impression that they need to like curate this online persona, and social media can become an entire job. And like, I highly suggest you do what's comfortable and not because you feel like you have to. Like, I've walked that line of let me exhaust every single possible option to support my debut and to help it be successful. And I do think that the things I did had an impact, a very tangible impact. I do think that's rare. However, I won't do that again. Not that hardcore, because I literally made myself physically ill. I was so exhausted and so stressed. And at the end of the day, I stepped back and I was like, if I keep working like that, I'm not going to survive in the industry. I'm not going to have 50 books out in a million years because I will have gone kaput. So I decided, and what I'm doing with my next book is to really figure out where I draw the line and where I really let the publisher do the things that they're supposed to do to market the book. And I do what I'm comfortable without like, sacrificing my sanity. So I think word of mouth is incredibly powerful. Having a personal brand is, and having authentic, not just having a personal brand and following, but having an authentic connection to that following. People don't like to be talked at. So like, you can have 100,000 followers, but if you only talk at them and you don't talk to them and you don't get to know them, it doesn't feel like you have 100,000 followers. But when you have 20,000 followers and you engage with them and you get to know some of them, you start to recognize their names, you start to see ask how they're doing. When they tweet or they comment or they post, you reply and check on them. When you create an authentic connection with your followers, those people go to bat for you when your book comes out. And so I think that's just something to keep in mind, is that if you're self-serving about it, which, hey, people got to do that sometimes for like mental health sake. Like, Twitter can be extremely toxic and draining. So you can only do so much. But if your goal is to make social media following part of your marketing strategy and reach, which it can be quite powerful, authenticity is absolutely important as far as you're comfortable, of course.
Brilliant advice.
For sure. I like that a lot.
Skip down here and get to the important ones because I don't want to take up too much of your time. But what kind of an impact have you seen in the community from Wings of Ebony?
Wow. I've never been asked that. I think about it all the time, but I've never actually like talked about it out loud. It's been life-changing for me to realize that this book that I wrote, the story I set out to tell to inspire these kids, is actually doing that. I could not have dreamt of what it would feel like to have like a teenager come to you and tell them how your book made them feel seen for the first time in their life. I've had so many kids telling me, I don't read fantasy, but I do now. I've had kids tell me, I don't read at all, but I finished your book in one sitting. And like, as a former educator, just as a mother, like, literacy is so important and it's so critical for like upward mobility in terms of like socioeconomic status. And to see kids fall in love with reading because of words that I labored over on a page, it's like, if the job were free, like that alone made it worth it, because it's the whole point was to reach kids' hearts, particularly with Wings of Ebony, and with Rue specifically, which is why I wrote her so unapologetic and so bold, because I really just wanted to jump out onto bookshelves and say, hey, I have something to tell you, and it's that you are magical. And knowing that kids are hearing that message is just deeply moving. Many, many tears have been shed. Many, many tears.
The most rewarding part, I'm sure.
It is, for sure.
So that's really cool. What if you had one gold nugget to give writers that are listening to this video, what would that be? Like
Keep
one thing to take away from this.
keep going. Writing, particularly like trying to create a career out of writing, you're going to get more rejection than you do not. You're going to get more disappointment than you do excitement. So if you let sort of checking off goals be your benchmarks for success, you're going to be disappointed a lot. You have to let your ability to do the work and your dedication to it be your benchmark for success. You have to be fulfilled by the work itself and the pursuit of that work, because you can't guarantee the results. All you can do is create the best art that you can, and your continued dedication to that is going to get you there.
I love that.
I think I needed to hear that.
Yeah. Well, thank you, j.elle. We loved having you on today. Wings of Ebony is available on Amazon and anywhere books are sold, so make sure you check it out. It is fantastic. Like, comment, save, share this video. Support j.elle if you can. And thank you so much for watching. Make sure you hit the alarm so that you are notified when our next video is up. And we really appreciate you watching and taking this journey with us. Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.